Hi, everybody. Monty on Astral Oracles. Thank you for being here, and thank you for liking and commenting and sharing and subscribing. It's appreciated. I'm going to talk about channeling, and I'm going to channel, but it's interesting, of course, to me how this whole practice affects the system, my body, my life, my mental composition, everything. It's been a very interesting journey so far, and I know if you're here interacting with the content, it's likely because it has some kind of a positive resonance in your life. At least I'd like to think so, and. And my impression is that they, of course, keep reaffirming this in their announcements that, well, the verbal transmissions are the tip of the iceberg. But so much of what is going on are these deeper energetic activations of remembrances and deeper or upper layers of the soul, depending on what spatial metaphor you want to use. But that there seems to be an activation going on, and at the same time, as the channeler, of course, it's I get a little woozy from all the energies, and I'm learning to ground more and more of this, but it's an ongoing challenge. But of course, I also have fun, weird experiences with it, not only in the sessions, but I do remember, for instance, I think in November or some months ago, we brought through Shiva, and that day I had also had a private session, so I probably channeled for 3 hours that day. And the next morning when I awoke, I felt for like the first couple of hours, like I felt like Shiva in my mouth, my mind. It was whenever I was looking at something or evaluating something, thinking about something, it was kind of his perspective that was coming forward, which was very universal and very much like, oh, but everything will dissolve into ultimate consciousness and this passing of shapes and forms in its eternal dance, right? Like so these perspectives, which are interesting, but probably not always as relevant when you just want to have a cup of coffee or something. But it is this tension, I find, that's very interesting with the channeling. That it is a way of constructing a bridge between these eternal realities and our mundane existence. And of course, we can say language does that very much, builds a bridge between abstract realities, things that aren't present or can't really be seen or touched or felt, but can be thought of and conjured up in language, and then bringing that present, turning that into reality. And I think that that's probably the way I think about this channeling. And I do remember, I think in the last live stream, there was also someone, all the beautiful energy. I want to thank you for that. But I think there was someone commenting also about, like, well, these telepathic connections, they aren't real or something. And I want to say it was Crystal who responded, but the messages resonate, or something to that effect, which I thought was just like the most beautiful approach, just the right way to think about this in general, because it's essentially who cares what's the reality of this. It can't really be construed. Whatever you can say about these deep numinous spiritual realities, it's that they seem to be so massive that we can make a lot of statements about them that don't necessarily refute or preclude each other. And that there seems to be a layer of it that's just that much grander, or that doesn't allow itself to be translated into our present capacity of experience, and that's that. And at the same time, it addresses us in our immediate reality, and if those messages are able to touch us and bring us in contact with something beautiful, and maybe aid and assist us and give us some cool tips on how to do our lives, or some funny projects and examinations and rabbit holes to fall down, then what's not to like about that? And I think that's very much the way to approach it. That, like, as long as you're playing um, an interesting game in your life, a game that's challenging, stimulating, and beneficial, and that you are at the same time aware that there is a level where you're just playing a game, and that goes for all levels of seriousness. That even goes for emotions such as grief and trauma and stuff. It's the spirit playing a game, but the more that you wake up to the remembrance of your true nature, which this practice assists us in, the more the game becomes a volatile, joyful unfolding and expression of ourselves. And that's of course always what they tell us, like the alien collectives in the ethers, right? Like we're just having so much fun, we're just enjoying this, we're completely excited and much love to everything, and because that's actually the quality of the soul when it awakens to the game. And of course that's also how you have a really good game as a human being. It's the fact you're challenged, but at the same time you're absorbed in the challenge. You know you can do it, but it's also demanding, and that in and of itself is something that brings out the better parts of you, the parts of you that are exuberant and joyful about being. So let's talk to the Quanta about these effects of channeling in yeah, their perspective, and see what they have to say about it. So much love to you guys. Yes, we are creating a circle and bringing in this transmission to remind you of the infinite realities which we inhabit, and to, by this reminder, connect them to your realities, you also being an inhabitant of these realities, and from our perspective, your very nature being made up only of the fact that you believe yourself to be something else than our sublime, limitless reality. This is an allowance we have for in our being, that parts of our being can feel as though it is separate from the rest of the all. So we are the all, permeating energy, and we accept that in this all there are, by necessity, things that must define themselves as more or less separate from the all. So all degrees of separation that can be within this universal all need to be there in order for the all to be an all. That is, all possible oppositions that can ever be mapped out by this system of what you sometimes call the laws, or the angelic parameters that are set up around this universe or specific matrix of souls. Well, the lawfulness in this is that all oppositions need to be explored, need to be had. And so, in this, you find yourself as one of these oppositions, and you find yourself also as an inhabitant of 4 and 5D consciousness, that, well, yourself playing around with being part of many different separate separations or layers, and working with these within these different layers. That is, for instance, within your sense of the spiritual that's growing into a deeper sense of knowledge, of knowing, of gnosis, your ability to mentally reflect and react and abstract, and your physical incarnation. That these layers work on each other to integrate each other. And by this, you gradually overcome separation. And this is the all then moving into, we can say, a lesser degree of difference within itself, thereby moving into higher harmony, higher connectivity, and you feeling better. This is the experience, the local point of the all separate in you, becoming more of the all again, inherently pleasurable as it was set out by the angelic parameters of this existence. Now, how does this relate to the effects of channeling, which are compatriot here? This separation of the all has set forward this question of, well, what does channeling do? What is it? Well, this is a modality of prayer which you are rediscovering. In ancient times, it was thought more that this was actually how prayer was intended to be. That is, in your modern apprehension of prayer. This may vary a little depending on the tradition that you belong to, but in your modern apprehension of prayer in general, you may have the idea that prayer is a type of supplication to the divine. Indeed, you have constructed an image of the divine as Dominus, as Lord, and then you supplicate yourself. You, to play around with you, send a letter to Santa Claus, and then you hope that he will grant your requests in a visible way, though you know no letter of response is forthcoming, that there's not an department at the North Pole that takes care of necessarily replying to these letters. But if you have been a good little helper, a good little boy or girl, you may receive presents as a response that your prayers have been answered. Well, prayer rather can be seen as this type of communication, dialogue, interlocution of the finite part, the separate part of the divine, with the universal part of the divine, or higher aspects, more unity-oriented aspects, such as deities or angels, saints, how you want to approach it. But it is a dialogue that is going on. It is a retrieval of messages also from the divine. These are not always verbal in nature. For many people, these are sentimental in its purest form, that there is a sense of consolation, of comfort, of quietude, of calming down in the reception of these messages. This is what is returned in prayer. And in millennia past, in arcane eras, there was, of course, certain people, certain functions, such as is reiterated or expressed now in this body that we are speaking through, that had this verbal capacity of the seers that would bring forward messages in their prayers that could be heard by others and used to stimulate their own prayer, so to speak. But people would, in addressing themselves to the divine, also be able to tune in to these messages, either these signs or synchronicities, not necessarily rewards, but symptoms of that deep knowledge then moving into their being. And this was the prayer, this was the channeling, this was them channeling more of the divine. Indeed, what this channeling does then is create a slightly higher vision of you, making this visible or attainable, more shapely, we could say, in the guise of words, but it's bringing forward this slightly altered, higher vibe human being. It does not matter whether or not you are the transmitter, that is to say the speaking unit, or that you are the receiver, that is to say in the role of the listener. This is indeed a type of heightened vibrational stimulation, a reminder of more of the all, a slight movement or nudge towards unity. And it is with this nudge towards unity that the space is then open for more of divine will to flow in and to know itself as also something specific in your unique, miraculous being, in the personality of who you are, in this wonderful, shining gemstone pearl that was shaped exactly under the pressure of separation. It is an image of the divine that pleases itself, so to speak. And this is why you also may see that there is a beauty within these messages. There is again this moving in of the sentimental reward that is the apprehension of the beautiful, because the beautiful is also the apprehension of unity within the separate, the distance of the seer and the seen merging in this experience of beauty that reminds indeed the spirit in the body that is seeing of its own beautiful eternal qualities and nature. This we will say as we open up this space, this squaring of the circle, this triangulation of the soul. We transmit these deep codes of love and remembrance, of awakening and restful bliss within you, as we extend our eternal, unmoving, and yet ever-present, ever-flowing love to you, wishing you blessings and peace. Farewell. I'm not sure they actually mentioned their name, but those were the 12th dimensional Quanta, and love those guys. So hope you took something helpful from that, and much love to you out there.